Today I will be going over my practical work, as I've done a lot since the last time I recorded. Uh, it was a mistake for me that I sadly did not record any of me during making these because I've done so much to the point that there is a humongous gap between these videos. But there is one thing to say though about that is that I have done everything in the same day today, so it doesn't mean that I've gone ahead and just recorded everything I've done days in advance. So if I just play the game, we can go ahead and explain a bit more in detail about things. So first things first to note down is of course how the player animation uh, works like so. But what I have done now is I have sorted out his animations for when he does the other aspects. For example, when he walks, he now does the walking animation, stops, goes back to normal. Whenever he holds down jump, he starts the animation. When you release, he will go ahead and do the final animation to go from there to normal, or from there to go to walking, depending on your movement, of course. The next aspect that I have done is I have gone ahead and adjusted the police officer. Now, while he turns around, I can go ahead and explain some things. The first thing I should have noted down is that what you saw then. So when the police officer turns around, this pops up whenever you go next to a spot that can be hidden, that can hide the player. And what this does is, when you hold down E, it gets rid of the canvas layer, of course, that shows the E symbol, but also it moves the player behind the layer of the monitor. I'll show that in a bit what I mean. And of course, the color of the sprite towards Boxman grays out a bit so that it looks like he's in the shadows. I've done this as a way to showcase how exactly the player would know what spot is able to hide in and extra things like that. But anything else is that, as you can see here, we now have the police officer every 6 or so seconds will drink and turn around. What this does, of course, is changes the collisions from left to right on the timing. If I enable things like my gizmos, that won't show it. But what I plan on doing, thanks to some ideas from my close friends in my class, I will go ahead and draw up a vision area that will showcase what the enemy can see, and this will be used to showcase when the player can turn around exactly, because using just this camera feature isn't so good when you're down on this side because it hardly moves towards seeing him front and center. Anyway, if we go down here and hide, once you go to the vent, the pop-up will say here, and once you press E, it disables the police officer, loads the animation, and then goes ahead and stops. Now, what you see here is something I'll explain in just a moment. So, before I mentioned about the layers. So, as you can see here, Boxman is in layer 2, while the monitors, office items, office table, while the office table and others are in sprite layer 0. Things like the monitor, however, is if I go on this, is in layer 1. So what happens is that when the player holds down E on the monitor area, it will move the Boxman sprite layer to 0, allowing him to go through. The same applies for the books, of course, as you can see, and you also saw in the video, in the gameplay. Next is the animator that I wanted to show. So here is the Boxman animator. If I pause it, reopen like this, and then go back, you can now see how it runs. So of course, when it's stable, it's normal. When you start walking, it goes to walking and jumping, and then of course release. And depending on if you're doing that, it will go ahead and deal with that animation. There are a couple of issues that I've come to learn. Is that if you, for example, double spam quickly, what happens is the character is, for some reason, still jumping while also being grounded. So it's technically supposed to be doing the start jump sequence. But because of how fast you do it, it didn't finish the end jump sequence properly. And of course, this means that the end jump bool isn't enabled, allowing you to pass on through to the start jump again. Now, I have a probable solution that could work, though I do not want to attempt it because it can lead to some possible problems in the long run. So it's not that big of an issue because you're not likely to be instantly holding down the space bar that quickly. But anyway, going on from there, we have the officer, which is more of a hexagon shape. I've done these simple shapes because it's a good way to showcase how the animation works. As you can see here, the animation shows the officer going through its stages, and if I reach the more optimal point to seeing, there we go, let's hide. Oh, I didn't hide in time. That's another thing, is that right here in the capture areas, we have the player detect. Well, what I've done is, because before it was just a debug that detected if you were caught, what I've done now is I've set it so that when you get caught, you get teleported to the spawn point, which in the scene is here, exactly near where the player is. So that would allow the player to go ahead and avoid having to reset completely on the game. Now, the final game may vary. I'm not too sure exactly how I will go about it just yet. But it is okay for what it is right now, so it is not important for me. The next thing I want to show is with the Death Zone and Fall Point. So, before in previous tests, this little area was viable to access, meaning you can easily walk past towards the exit. It was a good way for me to test run different things. But I've gone ahead and changed it now so that when you reach down here, you teleport to a safe spot. That's the fall point. This will teleport you up here because then it allows you to be able to quickly hide if the officer's there. So it's helpful for the player and means that it's not super unfair when they get teleported all the way to spawn. Also, I have extended the length of time countlessly on the officer to allow a more easier playthrough for players because one thing you have to learn is to understand how exactly the audience plays games. As most of the time you can run into the case where not a lot of people play platformers or other aspects like that. And that can cause, of course, the issues where the game is too hard for them and they get upset. So what I've done, of course, is extended this for now in this demo so that they have ample time to move around when to their hiding spots, and I've added the whole aspects to show that you can hide. Now the next thing, of course, is in the I've gone ahead and explained that in my final game, I plan to have different difficulty sliders. One for different aspects, like of course the simple one being health, but also for different aspects like how exactly you'll go about dying. This was mentioned in the previous recording where I talked about the focus group, and in there, one of the questions I received was about how exactly the one-hit death would be dealt with, or how difficulty will be implemented towards the game. And of course, the mind map I have made before about my difficulty is accurate towards what I feel right now, though of course, at this point, I feel some changes should be made towards that mind map in general, because as it is right now, the difficulty I mentioned there is kind of a simpler form of making a difficult game, which is not super fun. And of course, there's that. So the final thing I want to showcase is, of course, with this event. In the game, as you can see, the need to interact will happen, and you can see here now that the police officer will get destroyed once the player has reached over there. So if I move the player over to there and press E, the police officer gets disabled and it loads the scene. Now, of course, it's blurry right now because when you go on, because unless if you go on maximize, then it's going to work properly. Now, what I have done is I have created a stopwatch for the game, just for the demo, of course. The final game, I'm not too sure if I will have this as a feature, but what it is doing, it is counting from the start of this scene and until you reach the vent. Now, when you reach the end of the when you reach the end, it showcases the time of how long you took. What I've done, if I unmaximize it, is, if you could see, don't destroy unload is being used to stop to not destroy the timer whenever you go to the next scene. That is because in the next scene, if I go on the win and do not bother saving for now. Of course, you see here that it shows like congratulations on being the demo, and then it tells you how long you took. So like if I did this, maximized it, you could see you took 0 seconds because of course it's not got an actual time for now. And there are buttons on the side that allow you to go back to the main menu or just retry the game itself for a better score. And of course, this would allow you to play the game again for a better time. Anyway, that should be all for this video, unless if I update you on any changes I've made, of course. If I do, then I'll probably just go ahead and cut right now to showcase any changes I've made. So, again, I mentioned before about how I would probably cut towards any new updates on my project. I decided when I reached home that I would work on my game a lot more, and what I've done is I have finished the project itself. I've gone ahead and added some bonus extra parts like text displaying what exactly you do or extra guides on how you play. What I will do now is I will showcase you the game. So if I click play on the build. Before I click on this, what I've to explain about the build is in the Unity engine, you can go ahead and click on File and go on Build Settings. What this does is not just allow you to put your scenes in a list for the scene manager to work, but it is also used to build your game into a file that allows you and others to play it without having to deal with accessing the entire editor for it. So as we go along here, I will click play and you can see what I mean. So it starts off, of course, loading with the first logo, and I've added this as a bonus logo, and then it, of course, shows the game itself. What we see here is now that the main menu showcases some quick text to explain the controls. This is because I want to find a way to just let the player easily know how exactly this game controls like, because things like the camera may not seem a thing they learn about at first, but for now, if we click play, so it goes ahead and boots us up into the game as usual, except there have been, of course, some minor changes. So, for example, that took some time. If I go ahead and see here, there is now text explaining how the jump works, just allowing the player to easily get used to that. There's, of course, the explanation on the E key that pops up, and then the simple explanation of what you have to do to get past the officer. Now, as explained in the video, I have gone ahead and drew up a cone of vision area, close enough related to his box collision, of course. And this is used to easily identify the location of where you have to go. There's a simple explanation here of what the camera is used, so you can use the camera to see ahead. And if I just go from there, of course, if you just quickly speedrun the game, showcases this, and then it explains how long you took. There is nothing much different to note between each video, except minor aspects like, of course, the cone of vision and the extra text or scene about the logo. But other than that, there isn't really much else to note towards differences. That is why this is still in one video instead of being in multiple. So if I click quit, it actually goes ahead and quits the game. And from there, that is all my project. Now, of course, there is one bonus thing that I have been thinking of doing, and it will only be mentioned on my site if I receive enough comments about it. I will probably think about posting my game onto such like itch, and then I'll share the link across to people, or Discord servers, and get quick comments about the game for feedback. This will be great to use, but of course, if I do not receive any comments about the game itself or any actual feedback, then this is quite irrelevant information, to be honest. I will not go fully into detail about how this adventure has been for this entire project, because that will be saved for my final evaluation. But as it is right now, I can simply just say that this experience has taught me greatly in terms of making 2D platformers on Unity once again. And I cannot wait to continue this game for a fully built game instead of what this is. Because this project, this is a very short showcase of what my final game is really like. If you see on my site work, you will go ahead and notice all the different ideas I have for the final game itself. So one day you may see my game pop up as a full release, and from there we'll see how things go for it. But of course, this video is probably going to be very long, but there isn't really much else to note down for evaluation, so I'm going to end this abruptly right now. And the next batch of evaluations may just be about site work, because I do not believe I have any more practical work to do, because this is it. So that will be all for my practical, and I will update you on my site work next time.